So yeah, 9,000 PR from this game. I will spoil that right off the bat. This was a crazy match. And I love this ship. The main reason is Atago is just such a flexible ship that you can basically play hyper aggressively or passively, and you're gonna have a great time, really. And there's obviously times for both. And if you're good at knowing when to push and play aggressively, but also when to kite and play safe, you're gonna have a great time in this ship. It's mainly the heal. Now, initial positioning, obviously I'm trying to push towards a cap. My excellent concealment usually means I'm outspotting cruisers. It turns out there's a DD here that outspotted me, so we just turn out and slow down, and, you know, they're going to miss if they end up hitting us. It's probably just going to be an angled hit, and they're not going to really deal that much damage. Atago is so good in positions like this. Your torpedoes have excellent angles, unlike every other Japanese high-tier cruiser. And really, it's just such a comfortable ship to use. We don't really care about the carrier right now. We got a heal. We got multiple heals on this ship, which no other... Well, there's a couple tier 8s that have heals, but most tier 8s cruisers don't have a heal. And it's so huge to have a heal on a tier 8 cruiser, because it's such a massive advantage. Now, a lot of people are going to hate the long reload on an Atago, and I actually love the Atago reload. It's perfect, I think. Obviously, I mean, the DPM would be nuts if it was faster, but the long reload gives you opportunities where you can just angle completely away or completely in to the enemy ship you're firing at. And then you swing your guns out to get your shots off, and then you angle again. And it's really hard to kill an Atago doing this. You'll see that throughout the game. Just pay attention to how I'm maneuvering and how I'm positioning my ship. Here I'm just stopping because I'm trying to avoid grounding, and I want to keep shooting at the egg air. But just keep an eye out for how often I am completely angled to whatever ship I'm shooting at. It's really important that you do that in the Atago, because that's going to be your main way of staying alive and actually out-trading people. Atago may not have the best DPM, but you're definitely really good at out-trading people, just because you're so tanky. Of course, you have a 41mm deck, which means you're bouncing every battleship shell in the game, assuming it lands on your deck armor, and it's just really difficult to deal with this ship. And that's the main reason I like it. It helps the HE hits for huge amounts of damage every salvo, and you get lots of fires with it as well. It's a ton of fun. And honestly, I would say this is probably my favorite cruiser in the game. The playstyle is so much fun, with the concealment, the torpedoes, the hard-hitting guns, the tankiness, all that stuff. It is a really good time. So now we gotta push, because their team is mainly gonna be on the other side, and they're probably gonna win the other side. So it's important that we win this flank, because you can see our team is pushing down the middle, creating a crossfire on these guys, so we want to keep the pressure up. It's likely that our guys in the middle will die eventually due to the carrier and due to getting shot from the guys at A. I'm not sure how long they're going to hold out at A, considering there's only 3 of them over there. But we essentially just want to make some pressure here. That's kind of important. Want to push the DDs back, all that stuff. And you might be thinking, well, you only have 3 ships here too, and they have 4, plus maybe carrier support. But you got to look at the HP pools too, and what actual ships they have. They're actually pretty low on health. And because of that, I'm actually able to be quite aggressive. Right, this Bismarck is really low at this point. So it's pretty important to put some pressure on the enemy. You know, I've taken my time doing it. It's not like I'm going to go in right away. But now that my Ognovoy friend and Kansas friend are pointed towards the cap, I'm going to be going in too, because our Soyuz in Alaska are going to have a tough time in the middle. That's the main thing, is they are very clearly putting on some massive pressure on the enemy team, and I want to be a part of that. I want to help with that. And Atago can deal really well with destroyers. That's kind of its bread and butter, I would say, early game, is dealing with DDs. You obviously need destroyer help to do that, because you're not going to be outspotting any destroyers. But assuming you have help with a DD, you want to place your concealment at the very edge of your concealment. You want that to match up with the very edge of your friendly destroyer's concealment. And that way, when your friendly DD lights another destroyer and gets lit himself, you're also getting lit at the same time. So it's a surprise of 2 ships getting lit by that enemy DD. And then, of course, the Atago can just slap a destroyer for 6,000 to 8,000 damage with its HE, depending on how many you hit. Obviously, a Heisen's a problem, but he has a really long reload. So we can abuse that. You will notice I will get caught in a crossfire because the enemy carrier creates a portable crossfire whenever he wants to, with very little effort involved, so we will have to deal with that. But right now, I'm just baiting this Heisen. I'm hoping he shoots. You saw how I turned broadside to get my guns off, slow down, turn in, dodge every shell, and now we know he's on a 38-second reload. Well, maybe a 33-second reload, or somewhere in there, depending on health and the modules he takes. But we know he has a long reload, so we're actually capable of just turning out here for free. We have Hydro up, so we know the destroyers haven't torped us yet. The DDs will do a bit of chip damage to us, but the main thing is that we just get out of here, and we don't get caught bow into a Heisen. But you see how tanky Atago is. Now here, this is really scary, because obviously a Parseval with AP rockets can dev strike us, pretty much. So I'm trying to bait the Heisen into shooting me. I'm going to try and slow down and dodge his shells. At the same time, once I know the shells are at a point where I'm going to bounce them, then I turn hard broadside to the Heisen in order to angle to the rocket planes. And there we go. That's how we mitigated a single crossfire like that. And now that we've done that, it's unlikely the CV gets his second strike off just because of our friendly ships around. And we're safe. Just like that. A cruiser caught between a tier 9 battleship and AP rockets from a carrier. And we took very little damage. I love this ship, man. You get to do crazy things like that. And get away with it a lot of the time. Now, obviously you don't want to do that all the time, so that's why we're kiting away a little bit. But you notice how we've put a ton of pressure on their destroyers. We've put, I think we've probably got their Kitakaze down pretty low. We hit a couple blind shells on him. So that's actually a very good thing for our Ognivoy, because obviously a lightning Kitakaze combo is impossible to push into as a destroyer. So you gotta play super passive. But we're constantly trying to hang out around our Ognivoy, keep him alive, and support him whenever he runs into the enemy destroyers. That's like the best thing you can possibly do in an Atago is just hang out with your friendly DD and make sure they stay alive. You know, you can farm cruisers or battleships at the same time, but the more you hang out with your DD, the more likely they are to survive and win the game. Just because it'll be impossible for the enemy DD to deal with you, right? Your ship is so tanky and hits so hard on the enemy destroyers that it's almost impossible for them to take a fight. You can see how hesitant the Lightning is, and the Kitakaze is already at 14 kilometers. It's so important to do these things, right? If the Kitakaze had more health, I'm sure he'd be right up here with the Lightning, sorry. And it's possible our Ognivoy dies, right? So all that damage and all that support is so critical in helping your team win. And Atago is so good at that because it has the staying power with 4 heals that heal for 7k each. It's a lot of HP to get back. Now, you're going to notice me play with concealment here. Obviously, a destroyer in smoke can't spot me. Now that I'm lit, I know he's out of smoke. He's the only thing that's possibly able to spot me. Right? He's running away at this point because he likely knew I had Hydro, and smart play to him. But concealment and knowing when to shoot and when not to shoot is crucial in an Atago. And you're going to see me have opportunities to shoot at DDs or take blind shots that are probably going to hit and might actually end up killing a DD since the Kitakaze is on such low HP. But I'm not going to take it because I'm not guaranteed to get that kill. And it's not critical enough to get that kill on the Kitakazi. You'll see it later on once some smoke screens pop up and all that stuff. But knowing when to shoot and when not to shoot and use your concealment is so big when you're trying to deal with destroyers. Obviously, I'm just hard charging right now because I have Hydro up. You know, it lets you see torps for free and help your team dodge and all that stuff. Obviously, our HE can slap people for a ton of damage, so this Parseval is going down. Fortunately, the CV misplayed and got this close. I'm not sure if he realized how vulnerable this flank was for the enemy team, but we got the carrier, which always feels nice. We don't have to deal with that anymore. And our Soyuz gets the Wichita. Very nice. So you see how we've won this side, and the enemy team won the other side. I kind of predicted that earlier, and that's why I've been playing so aggressive here. And you know, we still have half HP plus 2 heals, so we're good to go. And now, here's the other nice thing about Atago, is we're so fast, this DD probably can't run away from us. And there's no way he can torp us. Well, he could have torped us right there, but I think he's still on the reload. But if he ever decides to turn his ship to torp us, we know we will catch up to him. And right here is what I was talking about. I don't shoot this guy. I could blind fire this guy. I've hit this guy blind before. But I decide not to shoot because I don't want to give away my position to the Lightning or the Kitakazi. I don't want them to know exactly what I'm doing. I want to be able to surprise the Lightning wherever he is. Because it's possible the Lightning's just hiding behind his smoke, waiting for me to get spotted and torp me. So I don't want to deal with that. Now I'm launching my plane, maybe I spot him, and it turns out the Lightning was just running. But you see, Atago's so fast, he couldn't actually get out of spotting distance in time. And now that he's shot, he's just dead. So, pretty nice result there. Kitakazi is shooting us. I'm keeping an eye on where I think he's shooting me from, or I'm just mentally thinking about that, so that once I've killed this Lightning, I can blind fire him. So we see his shells coming from the very left side of the smoke. So that's what we're going to shoot at. I made the assumption that the Kitakazi was still in his smoke, which actually turns out to be false. He's running away. But blind shots like this are perfectly valid to take, since you're not caught in a crossfire and you're not really risking much to do that, to take that shot. Now, here, I could have been absolutely blapped by a Musashi that I was not paying attention to at all. But we managed to make it out alive. And we've killed their destroyer down here. And because of the CV and its ability to spot, well, the Kitakazi will end up being found. Which is unfortunate for the enemy team because it's possible they win this game if that Kitakazi's alive and is able to torp me. Because that would mean I would have a torpedo threat on my flank while I'm trying to push into a Musashi and Z-46 and all these different ships that are, or not Z-46. Wow. It is a Z-46, never mind, sorry. The screen's just a little bit small while I'm recording these. And there we go, Kitakazi down. He gets a lucky fire, but that doesn't matter in a cruiser because our damage control is always available. And there you go, a Kraken with mostly damage on destroyers. And that is how you're going to get massive PR games like this. It's destroyer damage and lots of kills. Obviously, there's been higher damage games in Atago. There probably have been higher PR games in Atago, but how to get big, giant PR numbers is to just constantly be killing DDs. Because you get a ton of base XP, and at the end you're going to see how much base XP we get. Now, I've had games with double the damage of this game with less base XP. And that's because we are killing ships that are massive threats, destroyers, with small amounts of HP. So for the amount of HP that we have actually dealt in damage, it's very valuable. It's very valuable damage that we've done this game. Now, here, I have two options. I could charge B-Cap right now and go help my Ognivoy. The problem with that is there is a Richelieu in there on pretty high HP. And he does overmatch me. At longer ranges, your deck armor can help you, but you do have only 25mm bow and upper belt armor, which is very easily overmatched by everything with 380mm and up. So that's like everything at your tier. So I decide to turn away because obviously in my mind, bowing into a Richelieu is the worst thing I could possibly do in this. It's the worst play I could make. Now, that might be sacrificing our DD, because I'm not in there helping, but it's likely he dies anyway, and if I go in there bow in, it's likely I die as well, and then we probably lose this game. It's possible that carrier ends up killing them both, but they get both cap ticks. 2 more kills means the points flip a lot. It's likely that they end up winning the game if I go in there and suicide. So I'm not going to do that. I take my time coming around the island here. I thought I was going to ground on the dock there, so I slowed down and tried to turn out in time. And unfortunately, they get the Envoy. But I am on their flank, and so we're actually creating a crossfire with our carrier here, which I think is silly because the carrier can create a crossfire anywhere. But this was the correct play. Even though it lost us our destroyer, I think it was the correct play. Because getting caught bow into a battleship is one of the worst things you can do. At close range, especially. You know, I did that with the Heisen, but he has a really long reload. And he was at reasonable ranges, you know, like 13 kilometers. This, I would have been at like 8 kilometers caught bow in. That's a bad idea. You know, I could have maybe YOLO torped him. I could have gotten something like that off. But the safer play, the play that wins you more games, was to turn around and go around this island and keep the distance. Now, I will push back in. I expected the Richelieu to just charge at me, but he doesn't, so I'll push back in, try and reset the cap on the Benson here. As a funny note, with HE, you don't actually have to hit the target to reset. So we miss entirely, and we get 4 base defenses, and reset the cap entirely. Which, you know, probably didn't matter on this outcome of the game, because the Richelieu's basically dead, but it's still funny to me that you don't have to hit someone to reset them. Now there, I feel like we get robbed. 3 full pens on a 2,000 HP Richelieu, and we don't end up killing him. CV gets the kill. We miss out on our 7th kill. And, well, as you saw from the beginning when I showed you the stats, we don't actually end up getting this Benson. The clock ticks out, and that'll be the game. But what a match. I had tons of fun with this one. It felt like a difficult, challenging experience where my skill mattered. It felt like there wasn't any situation where there was just dumb RNG that I was having to deal with. It just felt like my ability to position my ship in a good spot and deal with the enemy's threats and provide pressure where needed and all that stuff, all of these decisions felt very skill-based, and I love games like this. This one was so fun for me. Partially because we won. It helps we won. But if you saw my Alsace game where I talked about what my favorite part of this game is, you'll know I don't need to win in order to have a ton of fun. It is all about the decision-making process for me, and being rewarded for playing well and being punished for playing poorly. I think that is where this game shines, and this is one of those matches, just in a cruiser this time. And the reason, and this is a great example of why I love Atago, is because you can just carry out games like this. It's such a good ship for pushing, holding, killing DDs, burning out battleships, tanking cruisers, all that stuff. So if you've got this ship, you should definitely give it a go. And if you're considering a Tier 8 Premium, Atago's great. There you go, 3.2 thousand base XP. And you saw, if you didn't, go back and look at the rewards, because I've been grinding free XP, and we had some flags on, so we got quite a few rewards there too. So, pretty solid result there, I'd have to say. Compliment our Ognovoy for helping us carry that one. That was a pretty nice one for us. So to build the Atago, honestly, I think just a full concealment build is probably going to be your best bet. Starting with equipment, like, you could run rudder shift or steering gears, but I find the maneuverability fine. I mean, it's 8 seconds, but your turning radius is actually pretty short, so it doesn't feel actually as bad as what this shows. Since you're so fast, if you're playing with your throttle and your rudder at the same time, you're actually quite maneuverable, even without steering gears here. And I play with my throttle a lot, that's why I run propulsion mod, but you could theoretically run steering gears, but I find being able to accelerate and deaccelerate a little faster, or accelerate faster, is is a very nice thing for a lot of those situations, like when I was caught between that Heisen and that the CV. Now, this upgrade is just amazing. They somewhat recently, it's been a little while, they've changed it from 15% better traverse speed it affected your reload. It used to give you a 5% longer reload, so nobody ever took it. But now that it's just a buff to traverse speed, all you're giving up really is better dispersion on your main guns, which Atago has pretty decent dispersion already, and the better turret traverse helps so much, so that's why I run that. And then engine room protection, sometimes you get your rudder knocked out, so you want to protect that as much as possible, as well as main armaments. Pretty standard stuff there for these two. Now to talk a bit about the captain. Shell switch speed is great because at close range your AP is devastating. Longer ranges it's not very good because it doesn't have very much pen, but close range, do not underestimate this AP. It's very, very good. AR, pretty standard. Superintendent, pretty standard. Concealment expert, pretty standard. Demo expert, pretty standard. Expert marksman, pretty standard. Priority target, I think that's all very standard for a heavy cruiser build. The one thing that you might be wondering is why survivability expert, and the reason is because it's my Zhao captain. Zhao kind of just wants survivability expert at tier 10, considering Atago base actually has like basically the same hit points. It might actually have even more. So this is my Zhao captain, but still, 42k for a tier 8 cruiser is pretty healthy, especially when you get a heal with it. So that's kind of what I'm running. You'll also note that I'm not running defensive AA because it's useless on this ship. Your AA is so bad, so even buffing it by 50% and 300% actually doesn't really do much because you're basically starting from 0, so those percentages don't really matter. And you saw how useful Hydra was. And I pop planes, like I've talked about in my battleship builds. Fighter planes are useful. You just have to know how to use them, which is popping them before the CV enters your AA bubble. So you want to pop it around 6 kilometers, 6.5 kilometers, somewhere in there, so it's active. And then when the CV drops you, because they will get their first drop off, they fly over your ship, your fighter locks, and then you're guaranteed 3 plane kills. It's pretty handy. And obviously there's no other option, but that's why I'm not running defensive fire. Back in the day, when defensive fire spread out drops, you always ran defensive fire. The whole point was to spread out the drop. You weren't really even shooting that many planes down. It was just spreading out drops, which was really nice. So that's Atago. Yeah, just a real quick 41mm deck like I talked about. And then your sides are 27 and 25. I actually didn't know they were 27. So I could have rushed that Richelieu, actually, and just stayed at an angle like this. And then when he shoots me, just angle in and then bounce everything off the broadside. Huh, I could have been more aggressive. This is probably changed with the IFHE change a couple months ago. Neat. So you're a pretty tanky ship, actually, against 380mm guns. But at closer ranges, obviously, this is what you got to watch out for. If you can overmatch this, you should aim right here. Behind the turrets. If you're shooting in at Atago rushing you, and you have 406s and higher, aim right here. It's really difficult to hit this citadel down here. But you overmatch the sides, and there's this gigantic, flat, 63mm citadel right here. So you hit that, guaranteed citadels, and the ship will just explode, basically. So that's what you're going for at close range. It's pretty hard to hit at longer ranges, especially if the Atago just angles, because the deck will bounce your AP. But that's Atago. I love this ship, man. I really do. It's my favorite cruiser in the game. But like, I can't think of one that's just more fun to play than this thing. So I hope you guys have a great day, and thank you for watching.